Today we're looking at Jesus' words that if we ask, we will receive. If we seek, we will find. If we knock, the door will be open. I have to start with the disclaimer. If these words are literally true for you, every time you ask for something, you receive, and every time you seek, you find, and every time you knock, the door's open, you can turn off the sermon now because you're way ahead of me. That has not been my experience in life. And I don't really think that's what Jesus is trying to say. When I was taught religion as a child, it had to be taught to me as a child. And so things like prayer sounded very much like sitting on Santa's lap. If we asked for the right thing in the right way, then we would receive it. And there was just this kind of a sense that if I didn't get what I wanted, that there was something missing in me, that I didn't have enough faith. So I'm not necessarily the model. If these words are literally true, then I'm not the one to learn the lesson from. If my prayers were all answered, then COVID wouldn't be here anymore. There would be international human rights, and the Cowboys would have a decent defense. Not necessarily in that order in terms of prayer. But what I want to do is talk to you, not without assuming where you're coming from in this. For some people, prayer is that one-on-one conversation. And I understand that. For other people, they don't believe prayer is like that at all. They believe that prayer is more attuning ourselves to something that we don't really understand. And then other people are not religious at all, would never think of praying at all. And I think all of those are equally acceptable ways of understanding what Jesus is teaching here. I think that what Jesus means by prayer is deeper and more profound than any one traditional approach. I think for some people it is prayer, the one-on-one conversation. For other people it's more like meditation, going through a kind of a transformation inside. For other people it's exercise, it's contemplation, it's sitting in the backyard thinking. The point, of course, is that we go deep in our own hearts and somehow tune what is there to the reality that we experience. So we're asking the question, what does prayer mean to the modern mind? And we're not assuming that I have the answer for you. I may have some suggestions, hopefully some insights that'll be worth your time here today. But I cannot know, to be quite honest, I cannot know what your answers are. I think we share questions together, and we can learn from each other's answers, but I think yours are going to be different than mine. I think the punchline is going to be something like the Rolling Stones tune, "You can't always get what you want. If you try, you get what you need." Jesus is going to give this formula. Ask, seek, knock. And one of the things that you can't see in this description is that in Greek, the word for ask means to continually ask. So it's not saying if you ask one time, you're going to get what you want. It's not saying that every time you knock, that the door's going to be open. It's if you continually live with a certain attitude, then you're going to find life opening up for you and being enough. The other word is in the past tense. I believe it's pluperfect is the term for it. It's standing in condition of already having done something. So I think what it's saying is, if you keep exercising, you're going to find yourself strong. If you just pray for muscles, that's probably not going to do it. So Jesus is talking about a lifestyle here. And I think however you do that is absolutely fine. I think it's a very individual thing. So ask means that your questions matter. I was taught in Sunday school class by some of my teachers that what God wanted me to do was to memorize their answers. Other teachers honored me by listening to my questions and being excited by my questions and not answering them, celebrating them. Because the truth is, the great questions of humankind guide us all through life. Those are what we have in common, not the answers. The answers divide us. The answers numb us. So the great questions, who am I? Why am I here? What is good? How do I know what is true? Those questions are universal. And just sharing the questions takes us to deeper places. It hints that what we really are wanting to do is to tune our hearts to reality. We don't really know what we want, especially as children. Think about if you were suddenly visited by everything you ever asked Santa for. It would be a nightmare. So to realize that we learn as we go and that we really don't know what's going to make us happy, and there's nothing that permanently makes us happy. So ask and keep asking. Have that curious spirit. Do that continually, and it will guide you. If you think about the history of the church, when we focused on our answers, it's produced inquisitions and crusades. When humanity is focused on our questions, on our curiosity, it has led to discoveries. It has led humankind toward the stars. So I think the first thing that Jesus is giving us is a recognition that our questions matter and that they're important, more important than our answers are, because the questions will be permanent throughout our lives. The answers come and go. And the second thing Jesus talks about is seek and you will find. I was taught a view of God where it was almost like God was hiding from me, and I had to figure out a way to make God manifest to me. The idea of finding something that's everywhere is too paradoxical to even think about. Like, how does a fish find the ocean? It's not something outside of us that we go looking for. It's more like a quality that's all around us, all within us, and even in the things that we abhor. So the way I think Jesus said this is that when you first find something, there can be a danger to that. In the ancient world, in this part of the world, there was a scorpion that folded up and looked like an egg. So Jesus said, who, if you ask for an egg, would give you a scorpion? It's saying that if we got everything we wanted, it would destroy what we need. Right? Because sometimes something looks good to us, but it's not going to be good for our whole lives, and it's not going to be good for the world that we want to live in. The parable here about the bread, who would give somebody stone that asked for bread? There were also, the loaves of bread didn't look like Wonder Bread. It looked like rocks. It looked like, little boulders sitting there. So, at least not the flattened bread, but the traditional baked loaves can look like stones. So it's saying that whether it's God or the universe or evolution or whatever it is, that it's a good thing that we don't get what we want, but what we need. Life is a journey, not a destination. So there's no stopping place that's going to make us happy. We think there is. We think if we get this something, if we get that relationship, if we get that job, then we'll be happy. And somewhere along the way, we need to realize that eternity never stops. Right? There's no happy ever after, because the story just keeps on going on. So we have to learn to love the journey. We have to learn to love seeking. We can't be so insecure that if we don't have everything there in our hands in a tangible way, that we become afraid and insecure. So if we continually love the journey, if we continually seek, if we're curious, explorative, if that's a word, then we will find ourselves. We will find ourselves in that situation of having found what we were looking for. And then finally, Jesus says, knock, and the door will be open. We don't know what parts of life we're closing ourselves off to. And we can't think our way to wisdom. We have to live out wisdom, which means we have to make mistakes. It's a trial and error thing. That sometimes we have to do things before we even know what we're looking for. A long time ago, I went to a counselor about somebody who was having trouble getting along with there in the church, and or they were having trouble getting along with me. And so the counselor, it drove me crazy at first, had me talk to this chair as if it were that person. And it sounded stupid, it was ridiculous, but for some reason it worked. So for some reason, when we take that step in faith, when we do the dance, and it doesn't have to be religious faith, it's trust in life, it's trust that something is born out of us. That if we give ourselves to life, if we're willing to make mistakes, then the door opens for us. Do you remember when computer games first came out and children could beat any adult on the planet? Because what the children were doing were hunting and pecking. And what the adults were doing were being afraid of breaking the computer. So there's a kind of trial and error nature to life where we have to be able to push the buttons and to realize that it's only in living that we discover wisdom. It's only when we do trial and error and make mistakes. And when we do that as a lifestyle, then we come to the point where we discover that life opens up to us. There's a wonderful prayer from long, long ago. It's a prayer by Socrates. And I think it's in the Phaedrus is where you find it. But Socrates is praying to Pan. In Texas, we say Pan, that the goat-legged god with the horns and things. But Pan means all, everything. It means nature, life, the life process. So realize that when you look at these ancient religions, they're not really believing in people with goat legs. It's a symbol system. So this is Socrates praying. He goes, "Beloved Pan, and all ye other gods who haunt this place, give me beauty in the inward soul, and may the outward and the inward person be one." That's one way it gets translated. Another way it gets translated is, may I have only those outward things that do not disturb. May I only have those outward things that do not disturb the spirit within me. And Xenophon is talking about this incredible prayer. He says, "For the gods know what things are best, are good. To pray for gold or silver or sovereignty or any other such thing is just like praying to be admitted to a poker game." I'm updating the image. Or to a fight, or anything of which the result is obviously uncertain. So we don't know how events play out over time. This is how an English poet rephrased Socrates' great prayer. He changed it from Pan to Jove. "Grant, O Olympian Jove supreme, not my wish and not my dream. Grant me neither gold that shines, nor ruddy copper in the mines." It's a little bit strained there. "But nor power to wield the tyrant's rod, and be a fool and seem a god. But give all goodly things that be, good for the whole and best for me." This is what whatever we mean by prayer, takes us to. What is it that tunes our heart to what is best for the whole? That's what will make us the happiest. So Jesus is not saying that whatever you ask for, you're going to be given. It's saying if you keep asking, if that's your style of living, that you're guided by your curiosity and your questions, those questions will take you where your answers can't. And he says if you keep seeking, if you're not comfortable with the cultural answers, if you discover that life is a journey, not a destination, then your very seeking will lead you to the discovery that you are where you need to be. And finally, if you go on knocking, if you live life joyfully and fearlessly in its kind of trial and error nature, if you go on knocking continually, someday you will realize that that very act of living fearlessly has opened doors for you. Looking back at my early Santa Claus days, I can't remember specifically what I asked for. All I remember is that warm love feeling of sitting on Santa's lap. I think that symbol is very important for what Jesus is trying to say to us. We're not really looking for things. We're not really looking for reputation or fame or wealth. We're looking for love. And so it has been said that anyone who rises from their knees with a heart full of love will soon discover that all their prayers have been answered. I invite you now to your own reflection on these words.